Breaking news. Quiet quitting is all the rage with the TikToks and the Gen Zs. Only quiet quitting is not a new phenomenon. It's how your lazy coworkers have been getting promoted for decades. Right now, there's a lot of hype about quiet quitting and a lot of misconceptions about what quiet quitting is. And maybe a lot of professionals that are about to get themselves fired for quiet quitting the wrong way. We don't want that to be you. So we're going to talk about it all in this video. As always, the timestamps will be below so that you can get to the part that's most interesting to you. Shall we begin with the basics? What is quiet quitting? Essentially, quiet quitting is opting out of hustle culture, overperforming and working all the time, and setting more effective and meaningful work-life boundaries so that you get to enjoy your life and not just base your identity off of work, which is all things we've been talking about on my channel for years. Told you it wasn't new. What is new is that we didn't have the term quiet quitting before, but I'm going to come back to that in just a few minutes. Because the discourse around quiet quitting and what it is has of course taken a turn. I have a rant about how quiet quitting is being discussed by the critics. Of course, not everyone is out there like, quiet quitting movement, let's all rejoice. No, there are a lot of critics of quiet quitting. You've probably noticed a bombardment in the media and in videos and everywhere about quiet quitting. And a lot of the subtext of the conversations and the coverage when it comes to criticisms of quiet quitting is this.
Nobody wants to work these days.
However, this premise relies on the fact that being lazy is defined as refusing to overperform, overwork, burn yourself out, and sacrifice yourself and everything about your life, including your relationships, in order to service the company's needs. And if that's the definition of lazy we're working with, I'm totally happy for us to all be lazy AF. In order for this to make sense, we need to look at the subtext of who benefits from us overworking and overachieving, and who's most concerned about prospective losses in productivity and profitability. I'm sure you can tell me in the comments who benefits from that. Now, knowing what quiet quitting is, what quiet quitting is not, and the fact that it's not new, we need to discuss why quiet quitting is having such a moment in the cultural zeitgeist. For this to make sense, I think that we really need to zoom out. And this is something I want you to practice in your career success strategy and how you think about problems and decisions you're facing at work. For this to make the most sense, we need to throw back to the olden days. The golden era where a desk job was 9 to 5, when a single income could support a whole family comfortably. And there was real opportunities for economic advancement. Now, because it's my area, I really want to focus on the work culture aspects, but obviously there's a lot of socioeconomic things that have happened. I'll make passing mention, but I just want to caveat that this is my opinion and I'm pulling facts from memory. I'm not an economist and I did not do deep research to prepare for this. So please, if you're basing decisions off of this, fact check for yourself, please. Since those olden days where a 9 to 5 was truly a 9 to 5, a lot of things about our working culture has changed, especially since the turn of the century. Everyone has email now, and we're constantly connected to it through our smartphones, where we can't just get to email, we can get to instant messaging, we can get to work apps, we can do our jobs on the go, which of course has led to this always on culture. Think of how often you're able to go for dinner with friends with no one touching their phones, no one replying to an email, no one replying to just this one quick message. It just doesn't happen anymore. And as this technology enabled us to work from everywhere, liberating us from the office, we also saw the rise of glamorization of hustle and the emergence of hustle culture. I know a lot of you are also in the tech world, which is the world that I was in, and we see through media and through social media the glamorization of startup life, hashtag startup life, and this potential to strike it rich. Along with those things and along with those developments in our working culture, we also have a workforce that has been trained to overachieve. Ambitious professionals are entering the workforce with a focus on getting the highest test scores, having the most extracurricular activities, and overachievement as a badge of honor. And of course, all of these things, and many more I'm sure, have unfortunately created a dramatic increase in burnout. Especially over the past couple of years, we have seen a marked increase in discussion about burnout. And you would think that remote work would solve a lot of these problems. After all, we're not commuting every day. We're working from the comfort of our own homes. We have so much less stress now. Only we don't necessarily have less stress. And that time that you're not spent commuting might be time that you're expected to be spent in meetings. Many of the professionals that I worked with found themselves working much more when everyone was working remotely because their boss said,
you're home anyway. We'll have that meeting at 8 o'clock at night.
And they didn't feel like they could say no. And obviously, subsequently, we've had the return to office, RTO, trying to balance remote work, hybrid work, or being forced back to an office that you don't want to go to. Pairing that, we have the Great Resignation, talent shortages. There has been so much going on from a work culture perspective. Honestly, it's hard for most people to keep up with. And then, of course, we have financial stuff underlying all of this. Over the past 2 decades, we've had the tech bubble burst. We've had the Great Recession. The housing market collapsed. We have growing affordability issues, which has led to a situation where right now, the average price of rent in Manhattan is more than $5,000 a month, whereas the average salary in New York City is just under $58,000 per year. And I use the New York market because that's where I live, but this is not unique. And when you're a high-paid tech employee, your salary brings you really far when you move to North Carolina, which also impacts housing prices and affordability within those markets. And I also think that I would be remiss to not mention the social pressures that we feel. Through social media, a lot of people feel like they need to prove themselves or they need validation. You need to be living an Insta-worthy life in order to be successful. So you're supposed to have an incredibly successful career where you're paid an exorbitant amount of money so that you can buy all designer things, go on luxurious vacations, and spend all of this time with your friends while you're working all the time. And through all of this, the reality for most people has been this. You work your ass off and you struggle anyway. Then we have this new term introduced, quiet quitting, where you're not quitting your job, you're still getting your paycheck, but you've opted out of overachieving. You're just gonna coast along professionally so that you can live a good life. Because all of that stuff isn't even worth it. Which leads us to the misconceptions of quiet quitting. Now, I tackled this one earlier, but I want to talk about it again because I know that I'm going to have some objectors. So what I want to do is I want to translate this for you. Quiet quitting has been viewed by some people as being lazy, that you just don't want to work anymore. But that's not true. In reality, when you're quiet quitting the right way, what quiet quitting really is working smart, not hard. And we've had that slogan around for ages. Similarly, not everyone has always wanted to get promoted into the C-suite in their career. That was not true 40 years ago, and it is not true now. And I think what quiet quitting does is it normalizes working smart instead of working hard, which, let's face it, people say it, they don't practice it often. But it also expands the definition of success to not just rely solely on professional success. Because when professional success is the only version of success, I personally think that's very unhealthy and quite toxic. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Another thing that I've heard in terms of pushing back on quiet quitting is that people who quiet quit are selling themselves short. However, I strongly disagree with that. I think that quiet quitting means that you're very focused on true productivity and true impact, which I'm going to come back to in just a few minutes. But I think selling yourself short is only giving yourself one version of your life and not living the life that you truly want to live. Look, I know people who love to hustle. They derive joy, meaning, and fulfillment from working all the time. And they love the hours that they spend doing the work that they enjoy. However, just because that is an option doesn't mean it's the only option. Sometimes selling yourself short would be giving yourself an insufficient amount of time to develop the relationships that you want with your family, your friends, your partner, your children. I mean, I can have a whole separate rant about the marginalization of working parents in this, but I'll save that for another time. Or perhaps in all of the time that you're not working, you're exploring hobbies or side gigs or something else. And allowing your true talents and your true creativity and your true passions to really thrive while maintaining your job that pays the bills. And the most annoying misconception and kind of backlash against quiet quitting is that it requires underperforming.
You're stealing hours from the company.
When you accept a job offer, you are not signing away your life. If you're in the United States, you're probably expecting a 45-hour work week, like back in those olden days, and to meet the requirements of your role. Meeting the requirements of your role is not underperforming. It's meeting expectations. Meeting expectations is the point. In what world has overachieving and overexceeding and getting like the highest performance rating possible been normalized? Meeting expectations should be the expectation. Otherwise, you have the wrong expectations. And if your expectations are substantially higher, your job description, your hours, and your pay need to reflect that. And when your team meets expectations that you set and you set the payment for isn't enough for you, that's not a them problem. That's a you problem. Maybe you need to get more staff. Or maybe you need to rethink the pay bands and the requirements. Sorry, that one is a particularly touchy one for me. In my opinion, quiet quitting is not anti-work. It's about acknowledging that work is work and it's not your life. And this brings me into the next misconception, and this is actually for people who are planning to quiet quit or have quietly quit. Because if you do it the wrong way, you could put your job in danger. Quiet quitting should be just that, quiet. No one should notice. Unfortunately, a lot of the advice that I see and the way that it's being positioned is to just, scale back, start just settling in to meet the expectations. However, when you have gone from overachieving and overworking, quite frankly, and you suddenly drop your hours and the impact that you're making, the perception is going to be that you're not meeting expectations, even when you quantitatively look at it, you are. Perception management is very important. Just like how Slacker Chad has barely worked but has been perceived as being high potential and has been given opportunities, promotions, and big pay increases, you working less does not have to coincide with a decreased perception in your performance. In fact, I think when you do this the right way, the perception about your performance should actually go up. Now, another misconception that I see is that quiet quitting is completely detaching from any career ambition that you have. Now, it might be. The point is that this is going to be personal to you. Success is an individual definition, and I want you to know what career success and life success is for you. That's really important. However, when you are quiet quitting, it does not mean that you have to step off of the promotion track. It does not mean that you have to step away from getting great performance reviews. And it absolutely does not mean that your pay should stagnate because you're just mediocre. You can maintain career ambitions. You can expect to be paid more and to be paid well in order to fund your life and the fulfillment that money is going to bring through travel and experiences that you want to have. And that actually brings me into the next point. How do you quiet quit the right way? This is something that I get into detail to help you uncover in my Career Glow Up book, which you should definitely pre-order. It comes out in January. But obviously, we need something to work with right now so that we can get you quiet quitting without putting your job at risk and hopefully getting you working less, getting paid more, and being perceived even better. So first of all, you need to have clarity on the tasks that you're doing. What expectations are you meeting? There are likely tasks that you do on a regular basis that no one is going to notice unless they're not done. These are the tasks that you are going to just meet your expectations and move on. There might even be tasks that if they weren't done, no one would notice. What I'm saying is there might even be some tasks that you're currently doing that you can stop doing entirely when you quiet quit. However, there is going to be a set of tasks and KPIs or MBOs that have a high priority. Maybe it's on the company's goals, it's on your boss's goals, it's associated with compensation. These are areas that I encourage you not to just settle in and meet the baseline, but to uncover your unique awesomeness and find a way to create a strategic high impact. Strategic impact isn't something that takes a lot of time. In fact, it will be done with the time that you free by doing everything else to that meets expectation standards. But because these are going to be high visibility tasks that really allow you to create an unignorable impact, you will still be perceived by your boss, by the leadership team, by your colleagues, as being a high performer. And this, of course, is going to show up on places like your performance reviews, the opportunities that you're given, if you're being considered for a promotion, and it should also be showing up when it comes to pay raises. Ultimately, to quietly quit, what you need to do is you need to look to what your lazy coworker has been doing this whole time and learn the lessons from them. In fact, I want you to go and watch this video right now so that we can get deeper into it.